In the mighty Persian Empire, ruled by King Ahasuerus, power and pride went hand in hand. Among the king's officials stood one man who would rise to great power and fall in even greater disgrace. His name was Haman, son of Hammedatha, a man whose pride nearly brought destruction upon an entire nation. In the king's palace in Shushan, King Ahasuerus has just elevated Haman above all other princes and nobles. Every servant at the palace gate bowed before Haman, honoring his position. Everyone except one man, Mordecai, a Jew, descendant of those who have been carried away from Jerusalem. Mordecai was sitting at the gates when Haman passed by. Mordecai refused to bow to Haman. Day after day, the king's servant questioned Mordecai. "Why do you disobey the king's order?" they asked. But Mordecai stood firm. He said, "I am a Jew. I will not bow before any man." When Haman saw Mordecai's defiance, his pride turned to fury. Haman was not content to punish one man. He plotted to destroy all the Jews throughout the empire of Persia. At the royal court, Haman went before the king and said, "There are certain people scattered throughout your kingdom. Their laws are different from ours. They do not obey the king's command. It is not in your interest to let them live." Haman offered the king 10,000 talents of silver to have them destroyed. Without questioning further, King Ahasuerus took his ring, handed it to Haman, and said, "Do with them as they seem good to you." In the city of Shushan, messengers were sent out to every province to read out and give out scrolls declaring that on the 13th day of the 12th month, all the Jews, young and old, men and women, were to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. While the city of Shushan was thrown into confusion, Haman sat with the king, drinking wine, proud of his plan. When Mordecai learned what has happened, he tore his clothes, put on a sackcloth, and cried out in the street. He sent word to his cousin, Queen Esther, who lived in the palace, through a messenger called Atak, the queen's trusted servant. He said, "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. If you remain silent, deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family will perish. Who knows if you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Queen Esther prepares to see the king. Esther fasted and prayed for 3 days, then went before the king uninvited, risking her life. But God gave her favor in his sight. The king extended his golden scepter, and she touched it humbly. "What is your request, Queen Esther?" "Even to have the kingdom, it shall be granted." Queen Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared." At the banquet, the king asked again, "What is your petition, Queen Esther?" But Queen Esther delayed, inviting them again the next day. Haman left that night, filled with joy, until he saw Mordecai still standing at the gate, refusing to bow. His joy turned to rage. At his wife's suggestion, he ordered gallows built 50 cubits high, ready for Mordecai. But that same night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the book of records to be read, and it was found that Mordecai had once saved the king's life by uncovering a plot of assassination. "What honor has been done for this man?" the king asked. "Nothing," the servants replied. Haman visited the king's palace to ask permission to hang Mordecai. But before he could speak, the king asked, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Thinking the king meant him, Haman said, "Let him wear the royal robe, ride the king's horse, and be led through the city by a noble prince." The king said, "Excellent. Go quickly. Do this for Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the gate." Haman obeyed, humiliated beyond measure. That evening, at the second banquet, the king asked again, "What is your petition, Queen Esther?" With courage, Esther said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, spare my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed and annihilated." The king, shocked, demanded, "Who is he? Where is the man who dares do this?" Esther pointed, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The king rose in fury and left the room. When he returned, Haman has fallen upon Esther's couch, begging for mercy. The king cried, "Will he even assault the queen in my own house?" Immediately, Haman's face was covered, and one of the servants said, "Behold, the gallows Haman built for Mordecai stands at his house." Then the king declared, "Hang him on it." And so Haman was hung on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Haman's pride led to his destruction, but God's hand protected his people. Through Esther's courage and Mordecai's faith, the Jews were delivered, and the very day that was meant for their death became a day of joy and victory. The story of Haman reminds us that no plan formed against God's people will stand, for when pride rises, God's justice prevails.